Okay. Right. My name is Helen Railen Fisher. I was born in Prairie, Mississippi. My father was Horace Railen. My mother was Alice Ross. She was the only daughter of Boswell Ross. Everybody knew him, everybody else except for my siblings knew him as Uncle Bud. That was my grandfather. He was, if I'm not mistaken, he was the oldest of Phoebe and Edmund. Oldest child, Phoebe and Edmund. And I remember when I lived in Mississippi, my mother, Alice, would take us, because when she married my father, she was living in the Delta where her parents lived. That's where they're from, the Mount Bayou, Cleveland area. So when she married him, that's where they were living. And then my father was from the West Point area of Mississippi, which is basically west of where Cleveland, it's on the other side of the state, basically. So he moved back home, brought her with him. So I was born in that area of Mississippi, the West Point Prairie area. But my mother used to take us back to her mom and dad to visit. So we would go visit Papa, as we knew Boswell. We would go visit Papa and Mom May, that was his wife. And I remember playing in the front yard, and Mom May in the kitchen cooking. I remember that. I was a little kid because my mother Alice passed when I was 8. So I had to be no more than 5, in my 5, 6, 7 when we would go visit Mom May. So after my mother passed, I remember my father sent me to live with one of his brothers. In Mississippi, in the southern states, family takes care of family. So one of his brothers needed someone to babysit because his wife was going back to work and they had 2 toddlers. So my father sent me to St. Louis to babysit for his brother, which helped him out because he had, 7 kids to take care of after my mother passed away, after Alice passed away. So I came to St. Louis, and that's how I got to St. Louis.
I'm leaving. The second screen's coming on.
Okay. So that's how I got to St. Louis. I remember after Mom May died, she died before I came to St. Louis. But I remember Papa moving to St. Louis after Mom May died. And when I came to St. Louis, Papa was already here. Uncle Bud was already here. And Bernice was here too, because she had graduated from high school. Once she graduated from high school in Mississippi, she came to St. Louis to live with Uncle Bud. So, because she had lived with Uncle Bud and Mom May most of her childhood life, because when my mother Alice married my father, Mom May wanted to keep Bernice. She didn't want her to take Bernice away from her, so Bernice ended up staying with Mom May and Papa. So after Mom May died, Bernice came to stay with us, her mom, her real mom Alice, and the rest of us. But then later, like I say, later on, after Mom May died, Papa moved to St. Louis, and from what I hear from other family members, he made sure that any of the family that moved to St. Louis, he took care of them. And a lot of times they ended up staying with him until they could get on their feet, get a job and get on their feet. But I remember visiting Papa when he lived, it was a building that he was always a janitor. He was a janitor at a building on Union. I don't remember exactly where, but you can ask our cousin Vera. She knows because she stayed with Papa when he lived in that building. I remember going there to visit and staying overnight in the basement because I'm looking up at these pipes wrapped in asbestos. We didn't know back then it was bad stuff, but I'm looking at these pipes wrapped in this stuff. As a kid, it wasn't no big deal to me, but I remember staying with him in the basement because that's where his apartment was, in the basement. And that's what I remember about my Ross side of the family. I don't know a lot of the people in the family. I do remember Aunt Beulah, my grandfather's sister, Aunt Beulah, and Aunt Annette. Because we used to, me and Bernice used to go over Aunt Beulah's house on Sundays after church. And then we go over there for Thanksgiving. And every time we go over there for Thanksgiving, you all were there. And that's how I got to know you, because you were there and Ruth Ann was there, but I don't remember Cherry being there. She was probably there, but I was a kid and you all weren't much older than I was, so that's how I remember you all. But yeah, you remember being at Aunt Beulah's house for Thanksgiving dinners and on Sundays for Sunday dinner. So that's my raw story.
Okay. So anything